Hello everyone, welcome to the world of Pushkar's Wiki. The revolution had a profound impact on not only the origin country but also on the rest of Europe and the world, inspiring other movements for liberty, equality and democracy. In this video, I am going to explain about the world famous revolution, that is French Revolution. This video will be slightly lengthy, but I am sure it will be interesting. Please go through the entire video to know about the world's famous revolution which changed the world. Beginning in 1789, it was not just a revolution of people against a king, but a revolution of ideas, that is liberty, equality and fraternity. France at that time was ruled by an absolute monarchy, burdened with debt and divided into unfair social classes. The common people were suffering under heavy taxes, while the nobility and clergy lived in luxury. This inequality, combined with the influence of Enlightenment thinkers and the success of the American Revolution, set the stage for change. The French Revolution shook the very foundations of France and inspired movements for freedom across the world. It marked the end of an absolute monarchy in France and the rise of democratic ideals that still influence us today. In this video, I will take you through the reasons, key events and impacts of the French Revolution. This is a turning point in history that reshaped not only France but also the modern world. As the modern understanding of individual rights, the establishment of republican government and the concept of liberty, equality and fraternity that influenced democratic society worldwide. These ideals too influenced the Indian constitutional design and forming democracy in India. Now let's start to know about the French Revolution. The French Revolution was a period of political and social upheaval in France from 1789 to 1799. The main reason for the revolution were: first was social inequality. French society was divided into three estates. The first estate, clergy, the second estate, nobility, and the third estate, commoners. The first two estates were exempt from paying taxes and enjoyed numerous privileges, while the third estate bore the brunt of the tax burden. Second was economic problems. France was in a state of near bankruptcy due to expensive wars, including the support for American Revolution. The tax system was inefficient and corrupt, and the third estate was heavily taxed. Apart from this reason, another main reason was weak leadership. King Louis XVI was an indecisive and weak ruler who failed to address the country's financial crisis. His extravagant spending and that of his wife Marie Antoinette further fueled public resentment. Next was Enlightenment ideas. The ideas of Enlightenment thinkers like Jean-Jacques Rousseau and Voltaire, which promoted liberty, equality and a more representative government, inspired the third estate to challenge the absolute monarchy and the privileged classes. And finally, the culminating event was rising prices, which played a major role in French Revolution. A series of poor harvests led to a food shortage and a sharp increase in the price of bread, which was the staple food for the poor. This resulted in widespread hunger and unrest among the common people. The struggle for survival. Population of France grew and so did the demand for grain. The gap between the rich and the poor widened. This led to subsistence crisis. The growing middle class. This estate was educated and believed that no group in society should be privileged by birth. These ideas were put forward by philosophers such as John Locke, English philosopher, and Rousseau, a French philosopher. The American Constitution and its guarantee of individual rights was an example of political theories of France. The outbreaks of revolution. The French Revolution went through various stages. When Louis XVI became King of France in 1774, he inherited a treasury which was empty. This was growing discontent within the society of the old regime. In 1789, the Convention of his States General was called, with 300 members of clergy and nobility sitting facing each other, and 600 members of the third estate who had to stand. Women and artisans were not allowed, but their grievances were sent in 40,000 letters by those representatives. Between 1792 to 1793, France became a republic and overthrew its old monarchy. and old regime and ended the feudal system, and the Jacobin government came into power, which was led by Maximilien Robespierre. But in 1794, the Jacobin government was overthrown and a new directory ruled France. In 1795, a new convention was appointed by a five-man directorate to rule the country from 26 October 1795. In 1799, the revolution ended with the rise of Napoleon Bonaparte. Now let us start with its timelines. The French Revolution was a period of political and social upheaval that lasted from 1789 to 1799. It brought about the end of the monarchy and the rise of a new political order. You can see here the timetable of key events, which is very important to remember for exam perspective. Revolution started in 1789. May the 5th, King Louis XVI convinces the Estates General at Versailles to address the country's financial crisis. The assembly is composed of three estates: the clergy, the nobility, and the third estate, the commoners. June 17th, the third estate, frustrated by the voting system, declares itself the National Assembly and votes to create a new constitution. June 20th, members of the National Assembly take the tennis court oath, promising not to disperse until a new constitution is established. The storming of Bastille, a symbol of royal tyranny, marks the beginning of the revolution. August the 4th, the National Assembly abolishes the feudal system and privileges of the nobility and the clergy. August 26. The Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen is adopted, proclaiming the principles of liberty, equality, and fraternity. October 5th. The Women March on Versailles forces the royal family to return to Paris, effectively placing them under the control of the revolutionaries. 1791. September the 3rd. The first constitution of the revolution is adopted, establishing a constitutional monarchy and limiting the king's power. In 1792, April 20th, France declares war on Austria, beginning the French Revolutionary Wars. August 10, an insurrectionary mob storms the Tuileries Palace, leading to the suspension of the monarchy. September 21st, the National Convention abolishes the monarchy and declares France a republic. 1793, January 21st, King Louis XVI is executed by guillotine for treason. Months later, in October, his wife Marie Antoinette too is guillotined. In September, the Reign of Terror begins, a period of political purges and mass executions orchestrated by Maximilien Robespierre and the Committee of Public Safety. In 1794, July 28th, Robespierre is overthrown and executed, ending the Reign of Terror. 1795, August. The Directory, a five-man executive body, is established to govern France. In 1799, November 9th, Napoleon Bonaparte stages a coup, ending the Directory and establishing the Consulate, with himself as the first consul. The event is generally considered the end of the French Revolution. Now, Women's Revolution. From the very beginning, women were active participants in the events which brought about so many changes in the French society. Most women of the third estate had to work for a living. Their wages were lower than those of men. In order to discuss and voice their interests, women started their own political clubs. Famous of them was the Society of Revolutionary and Republican Women. Their main demands was that women must enjoy the same political rights as men. Some laws were introduced to improve the position of women. The struggle still continues in several parts of the world. Famous revolutionaries among them were Olympe de Gouges and Charlotte Corday. Women did not win the right to vote during the French Revolution. While they were active in the revolution and fought for their rights, but they were ultimately denied suffrage. Can you just imagine the situation of women without the voting rights? But French women were granted the right to vote much later, in the year 1946. The abolition of slavery. There was a triangular slave trade between Europe, Africa, and Americas. In the 18th century, there was a little criticism of slavery in France. No laws were passed against it. It was in 1794 that the convention freed all the slaves. Ports of Bordeaux and Nantes, from where the French came and brought slaves from African chieftains and sent them to Caribbean in Saint Domingo, Guadeloupe, and Martinique for the production of indigo, cotton, and tobacco. But 10 years later, slavery was reintroduced by Napoleon. It was finally in 1848 that slavery was finally abolished in all French colonies. Revolution and everyday life. The years following 1789 in France saw many changes in the lives of men, women, and children. The revolutionary government took it upon themselves to pass laws that would translate the ideas of liberty, equality into everyday's life. The idea of liberty and democratic rights were the most important legacy of the French Revolution. These spread from France to the rest of Europe during the 19th century and to the rest of the world. And finally, Napoleon Bonaparte. In 1804, Napoleon crowned himself as the Emperor of France. He set out to conquering neighboring European countries, deposing dynasties, and creating kingdoms where he placed the members of his own family. He saw his role as a modernizer of Europe, but was eventually defeated at the Battle of Waterloo in 1815, where he was eventually sent to exile. And the war ended. The French Revolution officially ended in 1799 when Napoleon Bonaparte seized power in a coup. The revolution's ideas of liberty, equality, and fraternity were not fully realized. The period brought about a dramatic shift in France's political landscape, leading to the dismantling of the old monarchy and feudal system. The revolution's impact extended far beyond France, influencing future political movements and contributing to the rise of modern democratic ideals. Thank you.